Hi, everyone. I'm Rena Ninan. Thank you for joining us. We begin in Washington, where the fight between President Trump and congressional Democrats is deepening. The president says that he wants his staffers to resist subpoenas from House Democrats, arguing that they don't need to testify because he fully cooperated with special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Nicole Killian is at the White House for the latest on the ongoing fight in Washington.
President Trump is pushing back against Democrat-led investigations on Capitol Hill.
I say it's enough.
The president told the Washington Post his staffers should not testify on Capitol Hill. He says they cooperated fully with special counsel Robert Mueller and, quote, there is no reason to go any further, especially in Congress where it's very partisan. This follows a House Judiciary Committee subpoena of former White House counsel Don McGahn, who was quoted in Mueller's report more than 150 times.
Well, we're fighting all the subpoenas. Look, these aren't like impartial people. The Democrats are trying to win 2020.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Congress has the constitutional responsibility of oversight, and she denies the investigations are purely political.
It's not about politics, it's about patriotism. It's an existential threat, this administration, to our democracy in terms of our Constitution.
President Trump is also trying to prevent Democrats from looking into his business dealings. He's suing House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings after his committee subpoenaed the president's personal accountants.
We cannot afford to allow our president to be above the law, and he cannot dictate to us what we look into or what we don't look into.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin missed a deadline Tuesday to turn over the president's tax returns to Congress. One government official who will speak with Congress is Attorney General William Barr. The Justice Department confirms he is still scheduled to testify about the Mueller report next Wednesday and Thursday. Nicole Killian, CBS News, the White House.
And joining me now with more, CBS News White House correspondent Paula Reid, and with us from our Washington bureau, senior staff writer for The Hill, Scott Wong. So, Paula, to you first, what legal recourse can Congress take against people who choose to resist these subpoenas?
Oh, Rena, Congress lacks a robust enforcement mechanism to force people to cooperate with their requests or demands. Now, they do have a couple tools. One is a criminal contempt citation. Another is a civil action. Now, with a criminal contempt citation, that certainly sounds ominous, but the fact is Congress would have to rely on the Justice Department to enforce that and to prosecute someone. And Rena, historically, the Justice Department has not been willing to do that, but even if they were, it's just a misdemeanor. Now, looking at civil options, that would be something that would go straight to the courts. But even if a judge finds you in contempt, you are just paying a fine. And I would imagine there are a lot of Republican donors or other volunteers who might be willing to pay those fines. Ultimately, what Republicans seem to be doing here is playing out the clock, because these subpoenas, these contempt citations, all of this is ephemeral. It only lasts until the end of this Congress. So they just have to play out the clock until January 2021. And it seems that's their long-term strategy, because they know Congress can't really force anyone to cooperate.
So, Scott, knowing what Paula just said about waiting out the clock here, ultimately, do you think we'll see Don McGahn or any other White House aides actually testify in Congress?
Well, we don't know at this point. It's entirely possible that Don McGahn will reach some kind of agreement with Jerry Nadler and the Democrats to come to Capitol Hill. On the other hand, President Trump is using the enormous weight of his presidency and his bully pulpit to pressure McGahn and many other current and former Trump administration officials not to testify. Trump was tweeting today that Democrats will not see any of his people answer to these subpoenas that Democrats have been issuing left and right. So it's yet to be determined whether we will see some of these folks. However, Don McGahn and others have cooperated fully with Robert Mueller, so perhaps that is some indication that they would be willing to cooperate with the Democrats.
So, Paula, you've actually learned about one executive branch official who will actually defy his congressional subpoena. What do you know about that?
That's right. The head of the Civil Rights Department at the Justice Department, John Gore, has said he will defy a subpoena to be deposed tomorrow before the House Oversight Committee because they won't let him bring his lawyer. Now, I'm told that he has the full support of Attorney General Barr in defying this subpoena. But, Reid, it's an important example to illustrate that it's not just Republicans. It's also here you have Democrats refusing to make an accommodation or compromise in order to get the witness that they want.
So on the topic of impeachment, we know that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said it, and I'm quoting here, if the fact finding takes us there, we have no choice, but we are not there yet. So let's say that the White House tries to impede the fact finding, Paula. How can Congress decide whether or not to move forward?
Well, it's less about the facts or a legal bar. This is a political calculation. Democrats looking ahead to 2020, they have to assess whether the public really wants an impeachment proceeding, if that's a good use of their time and resources. It's clear that the mechanism for actual impeachment, indicting in the House, a trial in the Senate, the numbers are not there right now for Democrats. So all of this talk of impeachment politically and logistically just does not seem to make much sense for Democrats to pursue this. But if President Trump is reelected, it would seem that Democrats may take another look at new facts coming out of investigations of the Southern District. Also, potentially, what came out of the Mueller investigation, how he left that question on obstruction open. And they may have to do a new calculation as to whether or not they want to pursue this if President Trump is reelected. But before 2020, it just doesn't seem like the leadership wants to pursue this. And it's clear why. Politically and logistically, it just doesn't seem like it would work out for them.
Yeah, and Scott, you've got reporting on this. Nancy Pelosi has very specific concerns about impeachment. What can you tell us?
Well, I think the warning from Nancy Pelosi and the leadership is that, we don't want to rush headlong into impeachment right now because although we do have the Mueller report as a sort of a guidepost, we don't have the full unredacted report. We have not seen that. None of the lawmakers have seen that yet. And I think, as Paula was mentioning, there's some real concern on the part of Democrats that rushing into impeachment could sort of incite and excite Trump's conservative base ahead of the 2020 election. Democrats don't want to sort of wake up that sleeping giant. And so Nancy Pelosi held a conference call earlier this week. Both sides' viewpoints were shared on that conference call. This was the first time Democrats were able to convene since the Robert Mueller report was issued. And you had Democrats, including Val Demings, saying that, look, in this report, the Robert Mueller report, we have enough to go on here to follow the path down impeachment. You had a number of other leaderships and Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler saying, let's not rush into this. Let's methodically investigate the president. Let's methodically investigate what Robert Mueller found in his report, and let's see where that takes us.
And also, Pelosi wants Republican support to move forward on impeachment. Scott, do you think, to both of you, do you think that she'll get any Republican on board for this?
Not at the moment. Republicans have sort of been taking their cues from President Trump, who has been arguing there's been no collusion, no conspiracy that Robert Mueller found, and therefore case closed. And Republicans have really been echoing that sentiment. Now, if something changes, if Democrats continue to investigate and unearth something more having to do with Trump's taxes or Trump's business dealings, something unsavory, then potentially you may see some Republicans jump on board, but I don't think we're at that point just yet.
And Paula, what can you tell us about the White House's strategy with dealing with impeachment? Are they talking about that at all?
I think you saw a little bit of this earlier today when the president spoke with reporters. He will frame this as revenge, as political motivation. He tries to argue that impeachment is their only good option in 2020 because they don't have any candidate that could actually successfully beat him any other way. He's going to attack this if they pursue this, even the idea. He will continue to attack the same way he has attacked the Mueller investigation and any other investigation into him or his White House, paint it as a fruitless partisan pursuit. And that will likely resonate with voters who seem a lot more interested in health care, in infrastructure, in opioids than they do in the political wrangling here in Washington.
All right, Paula, Reid, Scott, Wong, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.